Hello, welcome to episode 32 of the About to Break podcast. Today is July 19th and just came off a week of some great shows. We had the show at the Beachcomber with my cousin Obi, always a good time with him. And then Adam Grabowski's show in Santa Monica there at the West Side Comedy Theater. That was awesome, man. If you haven't been out to Adam's show, check it out. It's a monthly show and you'll hear more about Adam on an upcoming episode of About to Break. This week I sat down with a longtime friend, someone I hadn't seen in a while, but I've known this guy since he was 13 years old. When he was 13, he was one of the best drummers I ever heard then. And now he is on tour with Andy Grammer and does a lot of different studio projects. And we talk about that. We talk about his work. We talk about his new marriage and being a homeowner and all the things that come with just trying to do what you love for a living and trying to pay the bills along the process. You're going to absolutely love it. Killer drummer, even better guy. Sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Eman Cervantes.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hey everybody, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host Taylor Hughes, and this week I'm joined with my buddy from back in the day, Emmanuel Cervantes.
Yeah. Hey.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. This is weird because we already did this in real life.
We did.
And now we're acting. No.
Right.
Yeah, no. I'm well.
We're in my house right now.
Yeah.
Thanks for making the drive over.
Yeah,
you're not too far away. You guys are in Glendora?
Mm-hmm.
Glendora-ish?
Just moved to Glendora.
Very
bought
cool.
a house. Did the American dream.
The American dream, man.
As a entertainer,
that's crazy, right?
It's weird. It's very weird. And the whole process of it, I keep telling people, I don't know how it happened.
Yes.
Well, it's like, you need to have money, right? That's pretty simple.
That's step one.
Step two is finding somebody who believes that's your money.
Which is an entertainer is hard.
Yeah, because they're like, well, somebody could have loaned you this. And so then basically you get audited by this financial institution, whoever it is. For us, it will go undisclosed, and they were great about it.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that guy has worked with other people in the entertainment industry. Not musicians, but like lighting guys or riggers or whatever.
Yep.
And then somebody goes, yeah, we trust them enough. Here's $500,000.
Right.
Go find something. And then you're like, oh,
okay.
crap. And really all you need me to give you is a percentage of that? Like, it baffles me how the whole process works and how it still works, you know, despite people really just walking away from homes. And and then there's also great people who, you know, buy a home for their family, whatever. It is within their means, whatever. And yeah, it's super weird. It's just super weird to me how the whole process works. And but being that happening, yeah, we're just stoked.
That's
bought a house.
So cool, man.
You know?
We just bought. I was telling you, we just bought this place in October, and we had bought before that in 2005. Had that house for 8 years, and then sold it for like less than we bought it for. And the past few years have just been renting. So the fact that like we got into a new place, and since then I've been like self-employed, full-time entertainer. Which is weird because you think, oh, you know, I got money coming in, but they like, we need to see X amount of years of history of income. You know, it's not like you have a paycheck from the same person every week or every other week. So
well, and what's funny is like for me, and we'll probably get into this a little later, I was a part of something where there was a very significant amount of income coming in.
Right.
And all of a sudden, that stopped. So from 1 year, you go from making X amount, and in the next year, they're like, why did that drop 30%?
Right.
And you can't tell them that it's a fluke, right?
Right. Oh,
because that happens with us. Like, hey, here's 10 grand.
Yeah, it's totally unpredictable.
But it also happened long enough where they're like, oh, you might have been working for. Yeah, I was totally working for them.
Right.
You know, and knock on that wood. Hopefully they don't listen.
Right. It's so funny too because so much of our work is project based, right? So, I mean, I have friends who are actors and they deal with the same thing. They'll get a commercial that'll, you know, they'll net like 50 grand off residuals off this commercial, and people are like, "You're so lucky," and it's like, "Yeah, but I didn't book anything for the next 3 months."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's a lot of things that I tell like the younger guys who are like maybe hopping from one gig to another or hustling, doing the $75 thing.
Right.
It's like you need to, if you get a big tour or a tour, you need to realize that's taking six weeks to a year of your life.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And if it's 6 weeks, now you got to figure out how all that money spreads out until you get back home and settled, which is usually about the same amount of time. That's what I tell people.
Yeah.
If you're gone for 6 weeks, it's going to take 6 weeks for you to get your stuff back together when you come
right.
back home. If you're gone for 2 days, it takes about 2 days.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure this happens to you all the time because you go out for, 2 or 3 days at a time, fireman schedule?
Oh, it's super weird, man. Sometimes it's one night. So,
yeah.
Like this week, I leave tomorrow. I go to Nashville for 3 days.
Okay.
Then I'm home for 4 days. Then I go to Pittsburgh for one night. Then I go to Dallas for one night. And then I'm off 2 days. Then I go back to Dallas for a week. It's
how it goes.
It's how it goes.
It's how it goes. And so then you have to think okay, what do I do in that time where I'm home? What do I,
My dog is just over here eating
breakfast,
her dog food. So happy.
She probably knows she's not supposed to do that, but she's like, he's totally distracted.
Here's what's funny is that you see how skinny she is. She doesn't eat most of the time. And so it's funny that she decided right now.
That's funny.
Like, we try to get her to eat all the time. She's like, I'm good. And now she's just chowing.
She's eating for the week.
You doing good, Lacey? Just staring like
yeah,
what?
She's great. Yeah, so anyways.
Yeah, man, so it is funny. It's weird, and this is what part of what this podcast is about is, you hear interviews of people who are in entertainment, but it's always some anecdotal thing that happened at the grocery store.
Exactly.
And it's nothing that really is, the real life of, dealing with.
Yeah, not sleeping. Not sleeping, eating terribly.
Yeah. Waking up in airports and not remembering where you're going.
Or waking up when you land and going, oh, this place has this great restaurant. That's the worst. You had Zach Rudolph on this, right?
Yeah,
so Zach has this incredible, what I call Zach Global positioning. So he knows exactly where he is, anywhere he is. Doesn't matter. He'll look at a map and he'll go, oh, we're 3 miles from this place, and this place is great because I've been there before.
Dude.
And he's the guy that will go out and go find the hippie restaurant or the good food or whatever. Me being a little more diet restricted, and that's because I used to be really, really fat, and now I'm just chubby. I have to restrict where I go, but Zach knows where everything is. And this is great when you're in an airport because you tend to connect at the same places, whether it's Denver, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Chicago. And then you go, oh, what terminal we're in? Oh, there's this great place here.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Well, it's super weird when I have to change planes in Phoenix and I'm excited because I know that there's a really good cartel coffee shop.
Oh, that place is good. Yeah. And here's what's screwed up. The Mexican place next door is really good too.
Oh yeah. And they do breakfast tacos too.
See
the sandwich place that's on the other side of that, forget that.
Yeah,
it's fake Panera bread. No one wants that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's we're talking about. I know exactly where you're at. That's messed up, and that's the stuff that people don't realize that that is your new mall. That is your new corner store. That is your new environment. You just kind of have to adapt.
It's so weird. The other day, I forget where I was at, but I was flying, and I made a big deal. First time to this city, so excited. I land in the airport, and I'm like, oh, I've been here.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Weird.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Because so much of it is people are like, oh, it's cool to travel, which it is fun to travel, but a lot of it, especially if you're in town for one night, people don't realize it's airport, car, hotel, venue, back to the hotel, back to the airport.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You don't always have time to.
Yeah, I mean, what was the one? There's a couple, this past week, or a couple weeks ago, we had a 4-day run, which is typically not rough for us, right?
Yeah.
So we left on a Thursday. We flew across the country to New York. We were in New York all afternoon, which is whoa. You know, you have more than 2 hours, right? So we're in New York City. I got to see some friends that I haven't seen. These great guys. They play with Hunter Hayes. And, just had a drink. And then I had dinner with my friend Mike and his friends, these random orthodontist guys. And I mean, it was a good night. That never happens, right? And then I went to sleep, woke up the next morning at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
to play the Today Show. So the Today Show, you wake up early, you go set up stuff,
right?
And you can't make noise because there's apartments where you do it.
Yeah, totally.
And then around 7:15, they go, okay, you can make noise. So as the drummer, even though there's a drum tech, I still want to tune a certain way because of television, whatever.
Yep.
So I'm up there tuning. It's muggy. It's gross. You do the Today Show. So we finish around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Been up already 8 hours.
Right.
So then you're like, okay, well, I can't go to sleep because we have this other gig in like 2 hours. So I went and found a coffee shop. And just, pay bills.
Right.
Catch up on all the things that I want to catch up on. So when I am home with my wife or with my family, I can just
be home,
focus with them and not be like, hey, give me 15 minutes so I can take care of the Amex bill, or the car insurance or whatever. So it's like, you do that there, cool, grab a quick bite, go play a show. Then we hopped on a flight around 4 o'clock to go to DC to go play another gig the following day.
Yeah.
That was crazy delayed. So I just fell asleep on the tarmac and got like 2.5 hours of sleep. Woke up, still didn't take off. Screw it, going back to sleep. We landed in DC probably around 9 p.m. instead of 6 p.m.
Okay.
And then I just kind of vegged out, watched some on Netflix, paid a couple more bills, or replied to emails. Next morning, kind of had the morning off, so explored DC. I mean, this isn't hard, right? This is not hard at all.
Yeah.
But it's exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing difficult about it. So went to a cool coffee shop, sound check, dinner, show.
Yeah.
Hey, the next morning everybody's got to be up at 3 because we have an early flight.
Yeah.
Catch that flight, fly across the country, land in LAX, go straight to the Rose Bowl because we played at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
At the Arroyo Seco thing, which was awesome.
So cool, man.
Literally all day, just hanging out, setting up. It's like 105 degrees. Great, awesome.
You're like close to home, but not home.
Yeah. And then I want to say we played around 4:30.
Yeah.
I hung around, watched a little bit of somebody else, and then I went home.
Yeah.
But that's normal. That isn't normal, right? Like I have a really close friend of mine, Joe, who I rarely get to see, but he's one of those friends you can walk away from and you just come back and catch up.
Nothing ever happened.
And he was like, dude, this isn't normal, right? I was like, I guess not, but it's not abnormal.
Yeah.
Right? Like there are enough people doing this where it is its own thing.
Right.
And so
what's normal is considered you go to this building, you sit at this chair for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and then you just live for those 2 days where you're not at that place. Like that is that's what's considered normal and acceptable in society. You know?
And you know what? I would rather do this because I can almost guarantee that if I had kids, if I had everything, me leaving for 3 or 4 days or 1 day or whatever, and coming back, that all adds up to more time with my family.
Dude,
than if I was working a 9 to 5.
I can tell you first.
So quit your job.
Definitely.
Explore your dreams. Completely fail. Then figure something else. No,
dude, I'm telling you, man. I used to work a job where I was 5 minutes from my house and I was never home.
Isn't that crazy?
So it's funny. Katie, like people ask her all the time. They're like, "Is it hard for you with Taylor traveling?" And she's like, "I see him more now than I ever did because." Even if I, so I'm going to be gone for 3 days starting tomorrow. But I've been home the last, 5 days with nothing. And I'll be home, 3-4 days after that with nothing. And I've gotten, like you said, you get to this point where you learn to work on the road and you take the time on the plane and in the hotel so that when you're home, you're actually home, as much as possible.
Yeah, it's If you're proactive with your time, you're gonna have more time.
Yeah,
and I feel a lot of people just kind of go waste their time while they're on the road. Honestly, like you can do so much.
Yeah,
you can just do so much when you're on the road. That doesn't pertain to what you're actually doing.
Right. People are like, oh man, they're probably at parties after the show, and they're just
I'm sleeping. I think that I'm the youngest one in that group.
Yeah.
and I'm probably the oldest one. You know? All right.
You're like, all right, guys.
Yeah,
I'm good.
I'm just gonna go lay down.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. As a drummer, I'm constantly sitting. So
totally.
I have to like kind of be horizontal at some point, just because it screws my back. And then, you know, the other guys that get to stand, sure, they're getting way more tired. I get it. It's more exhausting.
I don't know, man. You're probably doing the most movement and
maybe, but I mean, they dance a lot, so I get that. But you know, it's like just the fact that I'm constantly sitting down is a lot, and you know, taking weight off has definitely helped. But
so cool, man. Well, I want to get to this, and I don't want to do it because I want to ask how you got to this point, not in the way most people ask how did you get to this point?
Yeah,
because you meet guys who are like wanting to do what you do. And their big question is, you know, what are the steps you took thinking that those are the steps that are going to work for them?
Yeah.
I'm asking because I'm just always amazed at how the path goes, and sometimes where you don't think it's going to go.
Yeah.
But I knew you when you were a young guy drumming and, you know, playing in the band at church. And then you were killing it. Like, you had a skill and an ability, and you were putting the time in. So beyond, like, obviously just being good, how did the story go for you where you ended up where you're at today?
The first thing was, it was like I realized I wasn't good enough. And that's something
so good,
people don't value. It's okay to self-deprecate. And I feel like we're like in a bubble right now where you can't hurt people's feelings and you can't say the wrong thing at the wrong time. And if you can ask any of my friends, I'm the first guy that's going to say the dumbest thing possible. Like, oh my God, here comes that very small person.
Right.
Like, that's maybe, like, not cool, right?
Yeah.
But it's also something that everybody is thinking. They're just not willing to say it. And I grew up around people who were willing to say that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So where you met me, there was a lot of people that I met around that time that have surfaced in periods of my life, and more recently, like I was mentioning before we started this thing, have really just kind of popped up out of nowhere. And so I think I met you when I was probably 13 or 14.
Something like that, yeah.
And so at that same time, I met Zach, who you've had here. And we just kind of, you know, we played together in church, and that was kind of it. Maybe a couple of side gigs here and there, and didn't think about it. The guy he knew, the drummer for Andy's band, he would hear about me through Zach, like, oh, there's this kid, you know, blah, blah, blah. Cool. So we'll get there.
Okay.
But when I met you, there was also this guy that was also a drummer at that church, but really was just a member.
Right.
This guy named Ricky Lawson.
Yeah.
And
a beast, man.
Yeah.
Used to play with Michael Jackson.
I mean, that ginormous snare drum hit on the Whitney Houston song, that's him. I mean, you name it. That guy, arguably one of the best drummers ever, arguably one of the nicest people ever. Most recorded. I mean, you name it.
Right.
That guy was a legend, and still is a legend. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I had interactions with him where I think he saw potential, and he saw, you know, and I know he did this with other people, and that's how I now can put the dots together. And he would just kind of, you know, drop these little, like, hints or, I don't know, pieces of advice, or also just kind of like, that was dumb. And as a kid, you don't realize that, right? So
Right.
So I remember one time he came up to me and he just went, why are you doing all that shit?
So good.
Like, and you, like, as a 15-year-old, they were like, what? No, stop.
What are you talking about?
Leave me alone. Now as an adult, weird. I know exactly what he means.
Yeah.
And what he meant was, like, there's a time and a place for everything.
Yep.
And there are microphones for a reason, so you don't need to hit that hard. I still hit really hard. You need to... You're focused so much on what you're doing in that moment on your instrument or in your career or whatever that you forget about the people around you. And that was the bigger lesson. Like, you were not paying attention to what's happening outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And as a 15-year-old, that's okay. As a 30-year-old, probably not okay.
Yeah.
And I feel that most of the stuff we deal with as adults happens because we're stuck within ourselves and we're not paying attention. If you're constantly paying attention, you immediately forget about yourself. And so,
dude, that's
it's
huge,
like,
man.
I know a lot of people, when they meet me, they're like, oh, he never pays attention. He's always on his phone or anything. But they don't realize is that I've carefully crafted this whole thing of where, like, I don't need to look at you to know what you're doing. Yeah. And, you know, I might have read some books and taken some classes on how to read people and whatnot. But ultimately, you can multitask. Our brains are designed to do that. I mean, right now I'm moving my hands and not thinking about that. So for me, like, I just kind of focus on the things that are important, but never. I can tell you that your dog just sat down on its chair, you know, or on its bed, you know, and its head is facing us. Yeah. So like, but that's all peripheral stuff, and so when I started doing that stuff, I started realizing that not only did my performance get better, my attitude got better. My ability to perceive what might happen, you know, not assume, but perceive, know the different options that might happen if you make a certain decision. All that stuff started to happen, and that all happened around 16 or 17.
Wow, dude.
So by the time I was 18, it was like, cool, I got this mental thing happening that most kids my age don't have.
Right.
Now I can focus on the drumming. And so I went to school, and then I, you know, learned how to read music properly, because that's something, when you have enough talent as a kid, people just kind of disregard. Right. Especially your parents. Like my parents, you know, being immigrants, and, oh, my son plays drums. He'll do something later, you know?
Yep.
So that happened. Go ahead.
So I'm just saying, that's so good that you were at a point where you were able to figure that out so young. Because, you know, your talent, natural talent, amazing, and your abilities are fantastic. But those things like reading music or reading people, those are things that help you make it past the first opportunity. Yeah. Like, so many guys are like, I want to go on tour. I want to do this. I want to perform here. Yeah. Anyone can do that once. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyone who's decent or who's got the right connection can do that one time. Yeah. But it's those things, like the investment you make in other people and in yourself, that keep you being able to do it. That beyond there, you know?
And, you know, you're going to hit road bumps. And, I mean, I was 18, so I was still a dummy. You know, I still made stupid mistakes. I said the wrong thing at the wrong time. I still do that. And that's something I constantly work at to become better at. Yeah. But yeah, so around 18, I went to school. I did that for a couple of years, and then because I went to a community college, I met a lot of guys there that I still work with.
Well, and they had a great music program, recording program, and
and so I think I learned too much. You know, like they definitely had every available option that you wanted, and you could take it all. Yeah. And around
when you say you learned too much, you mean like you just
like there were so many things. I wish I would have focused more on maybe learning something besides the drum set, or you know, it was like. But I also knew I was limited on time because I honestly didn't want to go to a 4-year, and I wanted to start playing.
Was your goal the whole time I want to tour?
No. Okay. My goal still is I just want to be a session drummer. Yeah. You know, like the touring thing happened because I didn't know it could exist the way it happened. Okay. You know, and it's like a lot of guys I know now, all they do is tour. Yeah. They just tour, constantly tour. But for me, it was like, I want to do sessions, you know? And I had been exposed to that at like 13 or 14 and failed miserably. I mean, it was like, it was just horrendous. And I think that puts a chip on your shoulder. You're like, every time I'm in there, I'm going to be badass. Every time. Yeah. And so even now when I do a session, for some reason, it's this whole other thing that pops out. It does pop out when I play live. Yeah. And I can access it now. Opposed to it magically happens or like whatever. But it's like you turn on a light switch. You just have to turn it on and it works. Yeah. After I did like 2.5 years of that school, an opportunity presented it to myself that was, okay, you can go to a 4-year and you're going to be taken care of. Yeah. And scholarship thing. I had done an audition and they had approved it. And they were just waiting on me now. And a friend of a friend went to this guy named Alan who said, hey, there's this record label in Switzerland who needs a drummer to replace a guy that's from the school you went to. Okay. Because he wants to tour with somebody else. He wants to move back home. He's been there for 2 years. Wow. It's guaranteed for 6 months or whatever. So.
And now you got to make this decision.
Yeah, and I was like, screw school.
Right.
Like, what am I going to do?
Well, and that's so good, man. That goes back to this whole thing of like not thinking that the path someone else took is going to get you there.
Exactly. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. This is like, I think I was 21. Yep. Yeah. By the time that happened, I was like, I'm 21. I'm going to go make money. Not live at home.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Go live in Switzerland.
The richest country in the world.
Right.
And then tour Europe and tour South America and I mean Africa. I mean, you name it, we went.
Yeah.
And I did that, auditioned for them, and
what kind of venues were you doing? What was
it was like
the gig?
Everything from a private corporate thing, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh, heavens, yes.
Which are either incredible or terrible.
Oh, yeah.
And then also, like, just these massive events that would be thrown on by local city governments or, a promoter. You're part of a big festival.
Okay.
So, I mean, we played some pretty incredible things. I was there the year right after the big Olympics in China. Wow. And after the Olympics, this was really cool. This was like a highlight that I don't ever talk about because I typically like to keep my memories to myself.
Yeah.
So because you have to be there to experience it.
Right.
This one was like pretty badass. So one of the artists that I played with got hired to do the national anthem of Switzerland for the opening ceremonies for this like post Olympics tour that the athletes do. Okay. So the athletes don't really make a lot of money when they do the Olympics.
Right.
They make their money on endorsement deals after.
Sponsorships.
And then they just race after for like a year or two. And they do these like, the same event. And they all kind of half it. They don't go full out.
Yeah.
But, if you win first place, second place, you make millions of dollars. And so we went to this ginormous stadium in Switzerland. And we played the opening ceremonies, which was cool.
Yeah.
But then I got to like watch all these incredible
athletes and doing their thing.
I saw Usain Bolt broke a record there, and he wasn't even trying. I mean, I saw him after, and he was like, "Hey," he was like, it was
not even out of breath.
No, it was ridiculous.
Oh,
so
dude,
that was like a cool moment.
Athleticism.
Yeah.
I get winded.
Look at us.
I know, man. Oh, man. We could talk about big guy.
Oh.
Look, I get that belt's cool. I can't wear a big belt buckle, all right?
So I did that, and I lived in Switzerland, and then because of some visa stuff that happened on their part, I had to come back home.
Yeah.
So being gone, I think it was about 9 months total.
Yeah.
Being gone, just completely out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Really, when I came home, I had to start from scratch. It was like
because everyone else is moving along, doing what they're doing here.
Exactly.
And they don't see you, so they're not.
So
thinking
immediately,
about it.
right?
Yeah.
Different path.
Dude.
Super high success. Like 21-year-old making over $50,000.
Yeah.
In 9 months,
and then
comes back home and you have some money saved.
Right.
And you're dumb and 21, so you buy dumb things. Right. And then you're like, okay, great. Now what?
Yeah.
Start taking $75 gigs. Hitting up all these people I met in college. Hey, what are you doing? Doing church gigs, doing wedding gigs, doing everything you can.
Playing clubs and doing 4-hour sets for $100.
Exactly. So when I got back around 22, I just kind of started doing it again and, did some gigs that were a little high profile. I ended up getting on this gig with this PBS kid through my friend Ryan.
Okay.
And so we did like a little bit of touring, and then we did a big PBS special that was, it aired for, 3 or 4 years, and it was the highest rated PBS special ever. And I had to make a decision at some point, like, I don't want to do that anymore. That's like a very limited world.
Oh, dude.
Which
is challenging because there's money in that world, and you know what I mean. But you've got to be careful all along the way that you don't just become the guy that does the PBS specials.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Or the guy that does like my whole thing, the guy that does the corporate events.
Yeah. Because then you're just that guy.
Yeah. People love to go, all right, that's what he does.
Exactly. And so what was cool for me was when I made that decision, I was kind of inadvertently thrown into a group of people who were also trying to not be that, or not to be something that they were already. And so started creating all this stuff, and I got in with a great producer, this guy named Tyler Johnson. I mean, he's produced Taylor Swift, you name it. I mean, it's and he's like my age, right? So he's doing just the polar opposite of what I'm doing.
Oh
right?
yeah,
he's like already at that.
He's
level.
already there.
But he took a chance on me, and he gave me some work, and then this guy named Doug Showalter, this guy named Peter Dyer, incredible keyboard player, this artist named Cameron, and this other artist named Cam, who's now a really famous country singer girl. They all just kind of threw me bones.
And you just met these people, like one gig, you meet someone,
exactly,
and the next thing,
exactly. Like I met this bass player named Alex Balderson, and he and I just had this really great connection. So I was at this session with this girl named Cam, and they said, "Hey, we need this bass player for this song. Do you know?" And I was like, "Call Alex. This is the perfect guy." Called him. He's still on tour with her. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like you kind of somebody throws you a bone, and you take a piece and you throw it back. And I think if you do enough of that, everybody eats.
Oh
right?
yeah,
and that's kind of the point.
Yep, and this is where like. Not being an ass to people.
Exactly.
And being around. Like, how many guys do you know that are, like, not leaving the house and are like, I don't have any opportunities?
Yeah.
It's like, look, if no one sees you, they're not going to point and say, that's the guy who you need. You're right? Like,
yeah. And you know what? I'm the first guy who people go, he's kind of a dick. Just
and recluse?
But it's the truth. I mean, for me, it's just like, I don't want to deal with any bullcrap.
Yeah.
I just don't want to deal with it because I'm getting older. There's kids that are 21 that can play circles around me. So and I'm just going to tell you how it is. And if you don't like it, you can walk away. It's not personal.
Right.
This is a business, right?
Right. And I think because it is a business, people that are making decisions respect.
Yeah.
Like, give it to me straight.
Yeah.
Like, especially, I mean, anything like TV related. It's you know how fast, like, a script will change.
Oh my
like
gosh.
You're getting ready to walk out to do something. They're like, here's the new sides. Like you just got to be able to be flexible.
You have to adjust on the spot. And, So I mean, these guys were throwing me bones, and I started working more and recording more. And you're maybe making a couple $100 for a session or something. And and you honestly don't think anything of it. You're just like, I'm gonna perform. I'm turning on the light switch, performing. You own this. Okay, bye.
Right.
I'll sing some background vocals.
Right.
I'll be a part of this because the vibe is right.
Yeah.
So I kept doing that, and flash forward, I that guy that I mentioned earlier, Mike Baker, who used to be Andy's drummer, threw me a really big bone. He said, "Hey, you got a couple weeks. I need a sub for this kid named Cody Simpson. He's like a Disney pop kid. Now he's a great talented guy doing his own thing.
Right.
And he's like, it's a 90-minute show. It's in Canada. Here's all the music. Can you do it?" Yeah, absolutely. So I went in. I put the time in. I locked myself in a room. I made real charts. So if there are any musicians listening,
made charts off the stuff they gave you?
So every drum fill that was played, every possible vocal cue that I heard.
Yeah.
I mean, any option for me to fill was written down. So that I knew at that point what was happening no matter what, right?
Yep.
The spacing in between songs. Wow. This is, as a musician, this is 16 bars between songs.
Yep.
At this tempo, or this is, 21 seconds in between songs.
Yeah.
Expect, the click to go or whatever. And I went in, no rehearsals. I mean, rehearsals on my own, but as a band...
You guys never rehearsed together?
I never met the guy until we played.
Wow.
So I go up to Canada and played the gig and crushed it. Crushed it. So that gets back to Mike, right? So now Mike goes, okay,
and this was all solely on Mike's word. Like they're saying...
This is all solely on Zach's word about me to Mike.
To Mike.
So, and obviously, there's stuff on Instagram.
Right.
Or whatever it was then. And so you have to be able to put the time in.
Yep.
Not be nervous because this is what you do, and then perform and just turn it on. Like just perform. Like, whatever. So I did that. His management was really happy. Those guys were really happy, and just kind of doop-de-doop,
Yeah.
Kept going through the summer. Nothing. that gig was done, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then Mike hits me up. He's like, hey, there's a few more dates. Can you do them? Sure. That steamrolls into about another year worth of work. So now we're like...
That's great.
Now we're like 15 months into really solid work, right?
And this work that you put in with like creating these charts and doing all this stuff, that's work you did, and you're getting paid again for that work you already did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's already happened. Cool. All right. So for another 15, 16 months, I do that. And then in 2000, what year is it? 17?
2017, yeah.
13?
Yep.
In October of 2013, Mike goes, hey, I need you as a sub for Andy. Can you do it? I was like, yeah, cool. Same situation.
Yeah.
3 or 4 shows, no rehearsals. I went in, I did the exact same thing. I already had a recipe, right?
Okay, yeah.
Everything was ready.
Yeah.
Went in, flew with the guys, went up there and set everything up, and we get to the sound check. Andy goes, what are you not comfortable with? I was like, nothing. Whatever, throw it at me. and this is with Zach's playing with it. Yeah, this is Zach. So, Zach's just dying because he knows that I'm going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
So there's obviously little subtle things that are like visual cues that you can't see because you're not sitting there. But so we start running through the show and we get kind of through it, and then at the end of soundcheck goes, oh, by the way, that won't be the set list. Cool. So I learned like 50 songs or something, and I just had them on an iPad, and I knew what chord he was going to play to start the next song, or like kind of he would tell a story that would lead to a specific song, and so I would shuffle through it and be like, that's the song, without hearing a click track or a cue or Zach saying that's the song, So I did that, played those shows with them, did one TV thing with them. Nothing of it. Okay, cool. Step away. Yeah. If you need me again, great. No big deal. Kept doing session work, doing all this stuff, and just kind of forgot about anything. And then in December of that year, Andy called me and said, hey, can you come on full time? So I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Excuse me, December the following year.
Okay.
So 2014.
Isn't it crazy how in this industry, in any industry related to creative stuff, you think something is dead in the water.
Yeah.
Or you think, you've put a period at the end of that sentence and you go, okay, that was great, that was done. Yeah. And you never know when it's going to resurge or it's going to lead to something else, or you're going to get a call.
Exactly. And I feel like most of my life has been that way, right?
Yeah.
So... And he calls me in like around Christmas time, so it's a good Christmas, and sure, sounds great.
Yeah.
Awesome. When do we start? January. So boom, 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 do a couple tours, summer.
So now we're in like January 2015.
2015.
Yep.
So this is where like my life just kind of went bonkers.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word. Around that time, I was dating a girl who is a very sweet chick, needed to figure her life out. She was dealing with some really serious internal stuff, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully, got out of that without it getting deeper, right?
Right.
A few months later, I met my wife.
Yeah.
And it was an instant, like, holy crap, this is great.
Wow.
So we're hanging out, we're going through life, and she's finishing up her last year at college in 2015.
Yeah.
And then it might have been around September or October. I'm a nerd. I love watching all the keynotes, whether it's Google.
Yes, like TED Talk stuff.
No.
Like keynotes of like
here's our new product.
Oh yeah.
So
Apple's like, and now Siri's voice is different.
Exactly. Great. Yeah. So like, I'll watch the Google, the Microsoft, all of them. Yep. And it just so happened the Apple one was happening. So I'm sitting down, and my girlfriend at the time, now wife, is sitting down next to me, and we're watching this Apple keynote, and they're like, and this year we're releasing what's called the iPhone 6s, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And we made a commercial. Cool. Song starts playing. It starts off with drums. I go, that's me.
What?
Like immediately.
What?
I was like, that's me playing drums.
That's
hands
wild.
down. And I was like, there's no effing way. I remember I stood up, I was like, there's no effing way that I didn't know that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So the backstory about all that happening was those guys, Peter Dyer, Douglas Showalter, the guy Cameron, this girl named Bana Hafar playing bass. Incredible. Yeah. Everyone's still incredible. We had written this song called Apple Pie. or they had written a song called Apple Pie, excuse me.
Yes.
They had written a song called Apple Pie. Tyler produced it. Doug produced it. Peter produced it. Everyone was in the room when it happened.
Yeah.
I played drums on it.
Was this Cam's song, like this was going to go on an album, or was this for...
Yeah, it was going on an album, and it was one of these things where like we all were invested into this, and then nothing kind of panned out.
Right.
Period. Okay, bye.
Yeah.
And still close friends, right?
Right.
And we had written a song called Apple Pie, or they had written the song Apple Pie. I'm not going to take credit for that. But I played drums on it.
Yeah.
And I sang some background vocals on it.
Yeah.
And had no idea that Apple had decided to use it. So at some point, Apple contacted the producers of the song and said, we need all the files. And they're like, what's this for? We can't talk about it. Cool. Later that day, we started...
Like individual tracks and stuff?
Yeah, the vocals. And,
Okay.
the drum parts. And so as soon as that started playing, I was like, that's me playing drums. I know it. I just knew it. And then they used our voices, which is, if you know anything about commercial work...
once your voice is on it, there's residual.
There's residuals and there's performance royalties.
Right.
So they decided to use the one part where everybody's singing. And
you're at home watching this going, what?
Yeah, and here's the thing. It's like, it's cool. It's Apple. They're using this song. This is great.
Yeah.
Not even thinking about money coming in our way.
Right.
Not like that wasn't even anywhere.
Yeah.
And so later that day, we're all texting each other like, did that just really happen? And, Cameron, the artist, he's like, yep. Producers are like, yep, that happened. That's awesome. Media companies or the ad agencies start reaching out to us saying, hey, we need all your information to start getting you guys paid. And we're like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Like, I assume that the producers get paid or something, right? And they're like, no, there's performance royalties coming your way. And this is Apple.
Is this based on how many views, or?
This is based on when it plays.
Yeah.
Where it plays.
Right.
How many times a day it plays. Where in the world it plays. So this is because it's Apple, right?
And people can rewatch it?
It's well, I'm sure it was online, but this is more like live TV.
Broadcast.
The broadcast stuff. Yeah. So, sure enough, like later that day, there was a baseball game happening, and they're announcing their new iPhone. Boom, that's, 20 million people watch that. So that goes into whatever system that tells them how many people were watching.
Yeah.
That might be a $500 check. The next day might be a $2 check. One day might be a $6,000 check. You don't know that.
You don't know.
So, we made a lot of money.
Yeah.
I bought a house. Great.
Yeah.
So,
Thank
you,
Apple.
But it's the same thing. But it's the same thing where it's like you put into work with all these people, and you 100% believe in what you're doing in that moment, and then you have to realize you need to detach yourself.
Yes.
Because you need to invest your time elsewhere. Yes. Right? And that doesn't mean you don't love these people and you don't love the project. It just means you need to provide for yourself and your family.
Yes. But when you're there and in the moment, you put in the work. Yeah. Because you don't know. Number one, the work deserves it.
Exactly.
And number two, you never know what thing. Exactly. I was talking with my friend this week. He writes for TV, and his first TV gig he got writing was someone saw him doing a storytelling showcase 7 years before that. Wow. And he's like, that showcase could have been the worst showcase ever. Wow. I might have left thinking, oh, nothing ever happened with that. Yeah. This guy calls him, who he didn't even know, and goes, 7 years ago, I was getting into acting, and I saw you on this showcase, and I said right then, if I ever get a project, I want that guy to work on it. And he said, I just booked this TV show. Do you want to be the writer?
That's awesome.
Like crazy? Like you just never know, man.
Yeah, and that's, I've written I wrote a piece for a drumming website, and the title of it was You Never Know. Right?
Oh, so good.
And I don't think I've ever gone into something unless I knew it was like a guaranteed, like $150 or a TV thing where you're going to make X amount of money.
Right.
Going in thinking about the money, it was more about like, I get to play drums in front of all these people, or I get to record.
Yeah.
This will kind of live forever.
Kind of live forever, yeah.
That's cool, right? And yeah, so that happened. Life kind of took a quick, awesome turn.
Yeah, and you're dating your now wife.
Yep.
And this is just 2 years ago.
Yeah, this is just 2 years ago.
Wow.
I think I have the year right. I hope I have the year right.
Where did you guys meet?
through a friend of a friend on a gig.
Yeah.
She's a cellist, and she's also in the same industry, right? So she hustles. She teaches a lot of private students.
Yeah.
She does, we live in Glendora, and she drives out to Santa Monica every day.
Yeah.
She was an accompanist for high school. I mean, she probably works 5 or 6 jobs.
Yeah.
So it's...
Which is helpful that she, understood the industry and was a part of it.
And some people, like with relationships, like they function when they're together and only together. The second they separate, it's terrible.
Yeah.
We're the complete opposite.
So good.
I mean, obviously you have
it's
to...
terrible when you're together. No.
Yeah, I freaking hate being home. No, but it's like when I'm home, it's that same thing. You really invest into each other.
Yeah.
And when we're gone, you invest into life to me, right?
So good, dude.
Like I get to, by me being gone, I'm able to afford a mortgage. Right? I'm able to afford a car that will start every time, you know. Food for our dog, whatever it is, like that's a necessity for a lifestyle, for something.
Yep.
But you also get this incredible amount of time of me when I am home, right?
Yes.
So like we're kind of home right now. We're starting. I don't know when this is coming out, but it's July, mid-July.
Yeah.
And we're starting about a 2-month break because Andy and his wife are having a little baby girl, and so that means that they're going to take time for their family, which is great. August is going to come. We're finally going to go on our honeymoon, which is going to be great.
Where are you guys going?
Hawaii. It's our spot.
Nice. So good.
Thank you, Apple. No, I'm kidding. Actually, this has nothing to do with that. This is entirely because of freaking flyer miles. So here's a little pro tip.
Yes.
If you don't have your frequent flyer mile shit together,
please
get it together.
Testify.
I have been with my wife and girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
She had never been to Hawaii. So I was like, you know what? I'm home for 4 days. This is like a couple years ago.
Yes.
We're going to Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
Aside from food, everything else was free.
Yes,
hotel was free. Car was free.
Katie and I are doing this in like a month.
Everything's free, right? Why? Get yourself a credit card. If your credit sucks, get yourself a secured credit card. Build up your credit. Don't be a dumbass. That was me. I had terrible credit. Dude. This is real talk.
I love it.
I've told this to so many drummer kids who are like, "Oh, I want to buy this drum set." I was like, "How's your credit? Buy it on credit. Pay it off. Like it's a good investment, right?"
Yep.
So if your credit sucks and it's terrible, get a secured credit card. Capital One has a great one. The interest rate is probably 50%. Who gives a crap?
Right.
Save $150, send it to them. They'll give you a card for $300. Because if you miss a payment, they'll take it away from that $150 you give them. And it's secure. To them, it's a smart investment.
Yep.
After a few months of that, somebody's going to offer you a credit card. Don't take it. Wait a whole year. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And then your credit will remarkably jump.
Oh, yeah.
Like
just
ridiculous.
by paying the payments.
Yeah, At some point, you'll be approached by one of the airline credit cards, and they'll say, "Hey, can you do this?" Or a hotel one, or a gas card, or something. For me, I went with American Express.
Yep.
I got their blue card every day, so you get $1 for every dollar you spend, or a point for every dollar.
In our industry, a lot of it is you pay for something, and then you get reimbursed for that thing.
Exactly.
Whether it's per diem for meals, or hotel, or rental car, or airline tickets. You put everything on that card. You pay it off as soon as they give you the dough for it.
Exactly.
And now you've got all the benefits without
any real without any real cost to you.
Oh, dude.
And especially if you take care of the interest rate, right?
Right.
So, all that being said, I went with American Express, and I ended up going with the Delta card.
Yeah.
So when I needed to buy a drum set for a tour, or I needed to buy a bunch of cymbals, all that stuff went there.
Yep.
And I paid it off immediately, right? Because you need to have the money to pay it off. But you also need to be aware of what you're doing and your spending habits. But because I did that, after you spend a certain amount of money, they just gave me a total of like 100,000 miles.
Which is crazy.
On top of the crazy amount of flying we get to do with Andy. And so when I got engaged, we went to Hawaii for 7 days.
So good.
Everything was free except food. in a month and a half, we're going to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Everything was free except for food.
Yep.
So it's just one of those things where it's like you need to play that game, and it's a really easy game to play.
It is.
If you're flying, get something out of it, because the experience is not good unless you're flying first.
And it's worth all those trips alone if you can take your wife. Like, I mean, Katie and I, we have a companion pass deal now. So like anywhere I fly, she flies for free.
That's
Buy
great.
one ticket, I get another one. You know, and we've done the same thing. I mean, we went to New York for a week, hotel, flights, everything paid for.
Yeah,
we just bought meals.
Yeah,
we're going to San Francisco, do the same thing, staying at a super nice resort that we wouldn't normally stay at. You know,
same here.
It's all clear.
Same here, and it's like you just.
Welcome to the podcast sponsored by creditguys.com.
Hey, that's not bad. And you know what? You probably can do this without a credit card. It's just going to take a little longer, and you have to fly a lot more.
Yeah.
And especially if somebody else is paying for your flight. Like, I know for us, like, Andy's production company buys all of our flights. Right. And so we just kind of show up and get on a plane. So very thankful, and that is a very spoiled situation for us. I know a lot of people have to fly at a necessity or whatever, but eventually, if you have a job, if you're the salesman guy that we see at all the airports with their Tumi bags.
Oh, their Tumi bags. And they're wearing the suit on the plane, and I'm just like, that's miserable.
Yeah. No one's going to see you, bro. Their company's probably paying for them, and you got to know that they're getting the crazy flight situation going on, too. But yeah, get your freaking flyer mile stuff together. Do all the hotels. Like, the hotel stuff, even if you stay at Holiday Inn, if you stay at a Holiday Inn 25 times, they'll give you a free night.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And you never know when that'll come in handy, whether it's a family emergency or you just want to get away for the weekend or whatever. It's free, and it's usually a nice place, you know? Yeah.
So good, man. So good.
And if you want any more information... Honestly, though, this is real. If you're not following the Points guy on Twitter or his website or on any of those,
he's always like, here's the new deal.
Yeah.
Here's something that's...
And you know what? He's a very wealthy individual, but he also has like 55 credit cards, and he uses them like a mother. Yeah. And he plays the game, and he never pays for anything. So it's just...
I'd like to go back and just preface that Eman was saying, start with a secured card.
Yes. Yes.
I got permission from this famous drummer.
Well, I don't know who it is because I am not famous. So dude, that's where that's
so at. You guys, when did you get engaged? Was it about the same time?
No, I got engaged last year on Thanksgiving.
Rad. Okay, I'm dying because we were at this point when Apple starts sending you residuals.
See, I just got an email for Hilton Honors. Great.
Look at that. Great. Oh, we don't even need to get into what hotels to avoid. So I'm sure you've stayed at
anything with a sun.
If there's a sun in the logo or it says sun in the name.
Yeah, I'd stay away. Or if there's a kitchen inside of it, probably not. Probably not.
If they offer a weekly rate, or worse, if they offer an hourly rate.
Yeah, definitely. Unless you only need it for an hour to get a quick nap in.
There you go, man. You're watching the Apple thing. And so, you're like, crap, that's me.
That's me.
And you said this is when like everything kind of started going nuts.
Yeah, so like financially that changed the game, right? Like knowing that now you have a padding and a significant padding. Right. And then also knowing that you can start to spend money to make money. So for me it was like
huge,
like buying equipment to make sure that I have every option possible. Taking care of any weird debt, you know?
Yeah.
And that's really important because the last thing you want is to be at a session or something, you get this 888 number. Yeah. And you know what it is. The other people might not know, but what that happens is psychologically that now distracts you from what you're able to do.
Dude.
So like
good, man.
Or if you land and you get this weird text message or this weird email and it's like you're 2 months late on something and it's like, well, I know, but I can't afford it. But so not having to deal with that, but also dealing with that.
Right.
Definitely changed the game for myself.
Wow.
And that just put me in a different mindset where it was like, okay, I literally don't owe anything to anybody.
It's huge, dude.
That's massive, right? Also, as a 28-year-old, paid off any sort of weird student debt stuff, credit cards, you name it. Only thing was the car payment.
Yeah.
Which is a necessity in
Right.
LA. So able to move into a nicer apartment.
Yeah.
You know.
Which then is that's helping you mentally too.
Yeah, because then you're not
there's
dealing
something
with...
about, you go from this mindset of like, when's the next gig gonna come?
Exactly.
You know, to when you go like, okay,
if nobody calls me for a week, I'm not screwed.
Right.
And you know, that's going to happen again. I know it is. I'm waiting for it. And I'm like, I'm ready to see how that's going to be as a 30-year-old married with a house and a mortgage.
Right.
I haven't experienced that. So that means I'm going to experience that.
Yes.
And I'm in a way prepared for it. Not scared of it, just prepared.
Right.
Not because I have money saved, but because I know how to tackle it. Just like when somebody called me to sub for a gig super last minute and I had to do all that work, I know how to prepare to do all the work.
Right.
I need to, you need to call your contacts. You need to let people know, hey, I'm in town. And so for me,
dude, you are dropping so much freaking knowledge on this that guys do not think about.
They just don't.
I will talk to friends who are like, dude, I'm not working. And it's like, well, have you done this? Have you done that?
Yeah.
And I'm not even involved in their industry necessarily, but it's like just from the outset
exactly
of having a business mindset, and you go, well, if I was a realtor, I'd be doing this.
Yeah.
You know, if I was in this industry, you know.
Exactly. And I think people just forget to take advantage of their friends who are willing to give them work or and not take advantage of them in a malicious way. It's just you gotta.
But there is a power to asking and to saying, like, I mean, you would do the same thing if you had an opportunity.
Exactly.
You know, and and I think sometimes too we're a little stunted by the success that you do get, because then people go, well, he doesn't need work.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's fine. He just bought a house. You know, he's married.
Exactly.
He's bought a house, touring with Andy.
And people, honestly, like, that's the thing. People don't think I'm home. People don't think Zach's home, our guitar player. I think our guitar player is probably a little more active about it.
Yeah,
I know our keyboard player is definitely active about it. But, you know, it's like, we have to let people know I'm in town. You know? For me, that means every Sunday, church that I play at will gladly have me there. You know? So I'll book every Sunday from now until I have to leave. You know? But at the same time, I know that there are guys that are dependent on it. So, like, for me, like, I don't need, let's say somebody calls me right now and gives me a $75 gig or a $150 gig.
Yeah.
I now know that I don't need to take that, but X guy needs it or girl needs it.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, yo, this dude needs it, you know?
That's good.
What that does for me is that now this person is available for me when I might need them for something that I really need help on, whether it's moving my house, you know, or anything. But and I don't think about it in that way, but that's just the reality of how things are, right? It's like you feed me and then I'll feed you, right?
Dude, there's a huge communal aspect to this that I think people miss, because we get so focused on, like, what, like you said, what am I doing? What is my gig? What is my project? And there is something about, I mean, even we started this show in LA. It's called Jokers and Aces, and it's comedians and magicians. I have so many guys I can call and be like, hey, do you want to do a show? You know, it gives them a place to work out stuff, but I wouldn't have that if there wasn't this relationship, regularly hitting guys up and they hit you up and you help each other out.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude.
And that's just how it is, you know. And it's like, if I'm able to throw a gig at you, you know, whether it's subbing for me at this church or subbing for me on this other thing, I know that's going to help you exponentially, right?
Yeah.
Because the experience you're getting, the financial stuff you're getting,
right.
That's going to help you. And I don't ever want that back. What I want from you is, like, every once in a while, let's go grab lunch. Yeah. Hey, I'll pay for your lunch.
So good, dude.
Right? Like, I really don't need anything. Like, there's this buddy of mine. So yesterday I had this termite inspection at my house.
Yeah.
Homeowner shit. Great.
Right?
So I
thought we did this before we bought the house.
I know there's termites. I know 100% know there's termites.
Yeah.
So I don't need some dude to show up in a suit to tell me that.
But you got to pay some random guy $65 so that
$150 to tell me that there's termites. So this guy shows up, and we, partly why we had to reschedule so much is because with Andy taking this break at the end of the, he's on break now, but there's a bunch of stuff that needs to happen before the child is born. So
he is coming.
Yeah,
she is coming. She is coming.
And so, whether that's like record label stuff,
right?
Making sure people hear his song,
right?
Video shoots, all this stuff has to happen within like a week,
right?
And so they're changing our schedule, which is why I had to bail on you a few times.
Totally get it, man.
And so I have this home inspection, which is fun. So I wake up at 8:30 because the guy's wake up at 8 because the guy's gonna be there at 8:30. The guy shows up at 8:30, and I already knew that this was gonna take a long time for me to hear something that I already knew. So I hit up my buddy, who I have been fortunate to like have sub for me on gigs, and he helped me move and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's I feed you, you feed me.
Right.
And I hit him. I was like, "Yo, dude, I know you live in Pasadena or rehearsals in Pasadena. Do you mind just setting up some cymbals, and some drums, just so I can show up and play?"
Yeah.
Like, that's it. He's like, "Dude, totally." Like, like, it's the least I can do. He's like, "What else do you need?" I was like, "No, that's it. Like, I'll show up around 10:30 or 11.
Yeah.
Like, so, I was able to pull that favor because not have I hooked him up, but because it's like I've developed a relationship with him where I know that it's not a massive inconvenience.
Right.
And there is something to like, well, that guy really helped me out, so I know he needs help right now,
That's so
and
good.
that has nothing to do with music. That just has something to do with people.
Yeah.
And so I did the home inspection. They told me I have termites. Thanks. And then they don't give you any options as to what you can do. They just say, we got to figure out some numbers.
Yeah.
And so then I drove and went to a rehearsal. And
I think the real reason they have that initial thing is not so he could look for termites, it's so he could look at your stuff and be like, this guy can afford more.
And we honestly should have gotten it done before.
You should have just moved all your nice things in the other room.
we should have honestly gotten that done before we moved into the house.
I know. Esco's crazy, dude. There's a crunch time.
Yeah.
We bought this place in October, and in the past month, in order, we had our air conditioner go out.
Yes.
I had a guy come out and fix it. Two days later, our oven broke. Had a guy come out and fix it, and the very next day, our washing machine broke. All in order, and our hot water heater.
That was the big one.
That's the big one. It's like, are you joking me? And then the big one. And then you call that like $500, year-long insurance give you, and they're like, it doesn't cover it, or this or that. They figure out a reason
because you caused it. Thanks.
Yeah.
But I'm challenging the termites. Eat my house. They can deal with it.
They can have it.
Yeah,
Look
have at it.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I'll catch up.
Yeah. I'll clean up after you.
So how's it been the last couple years? You got married.
So got engaged in November.
Yeah.
Planned a wedding. We had an awesome wedding, and we did this on purpose. We had a wedding on a Wednesday at 4 p.m.
Brilliant. I know where you're going. Go ahead.
We knew the people who wanted to be there were going to be there.
And the people who wanted free booze and cake.
Exactly. And we also didn't say anything about food. Even though the whole time we knew there was food.
Yeah.
It's like Undercover Boss.
That's so good, dude.
So there was maybe 50 people there.
Yeah.
And then we prepared for like 100.
Yep.
So there was, I don't know if you know, Kogi Trucks.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
They catered for us.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And she's Korean and I'm Mexican. So it's the perfect
it's
marriage.
It's symbolic even, right?
The perfect
marriage. We
food.
make beautiful flavors together.
We had great cakes. We have a shit ton of donuts. You name it, we had it.
I love that, man, because most people they eat the crappy chicken, rubbery chicken and rice pilaf, and then what do? They go hit the food truck on the way home.
Exactly.
It's just cut out the middleman.
Yeah, that's the whole point of life, right? Cut out the middleman. So we got married on Wednesday, 4 p.m., fed people.
Nice.
I was home by like 9.
So good.
And then the next night, I took a red eye and we went and played a gig. So we weren't able to take a honeymoon.
You haven't done the honeymoon
which
yet.
is why we're going in August, late August.
That's awesome.
And then about a year before that, when the Apple Mini came in, I was like, I want to try and buy a house.
Yeah.
And that was the whole process when I was rudely awakened to like, hey, thank you for showing us you have money, but we don't believe it's yours. And we don't believe that you can make money like this for the next, 30 years. Yes. That's the hard part.
I went through the same thing, man, because it's like they're like, we need a history of income. It's like, well, here's my income.
Yeah.
Well, but no, we need to see that you have future stuff. Well, here's contracts I have for the next 8 months.
Yeah.
No, well, that,
Yeah. And that's kind of what we had, what I had to go through was like, I had to have, and Andy was great about this.
Yeah.
I let him know what was happening. He's like, contact my business guy. So his business guy, this guy named Ed, I was like, hey, they want to know that I'm working for the next year, and they want to know why I've only made, I think when we first started this process this year, they were like, well, you've only made 10% of what your last year was, and there's no way you can make that much from now until December. And I was like, actually, there is. And so I gave them a calendar of dates, and you spread out like what you make a week and daily and whatever. And they were like, man, it's still you're about $15K off. And I was like, weird. So I had Andy's financial guy talk to the loan company. And the guy replied, he's like, oh, dude, you're totally on pace. Like, don't worry about it. He's like, if we give you about a 10% grace. So you're good. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
And so, thankfully, Andy and Ed for
Thank you, Ed.
taking care of that. So we've been there since April 21st.
It's cool,
I want to say,
And besides the termites, it's pretty rad, huh?
It's pretty awesome. Starting to build my studio. That'll be fun. So, I'm excited about that. I'm enjoying being home for 2 months. I'm going to really try and enjoy that,
That's good, dude. Do you get, like, itchy when you're not traveling ever? Dude, you're so chill, man. How do you handle it?
Handle what?
I don't know. I tend to freak out quite a bit. Even when stuff's good, I freak out. Like, I'll have moments where, like, I panic out for no reason at all.
I totally freak out. Like, I was having a freak out probably a week ago, like, and that's because that was like the beginning of the month, right? And it's like, if you plan accordingly, my thing is, I grew up in a very practical family, and so I never had anything I never needed. I always had what I needed, so I kind of just lived my life.
You guys had excess. It's because you learned to be cool with
frugal.
What you had, right?
You had to be frugal, and I'm not frugal by any means. Like, screw this. Let's go spend $10K on a new studio. But I know that I don't need that right now. Right. So I know that I'm coming into a little period of time where there's very little income coming in. And I know I need X amount to pay for my bills, and that's what I'm gonna make, and I'll spend more than that because I have to. But it's not gonna put me in the hole. And that's kind of, you have to approach it. And what I tell, like, a lot of the younger guys that come up to me, I'm only 30, but the guys that are in their mid 20s are like, dude, how do you do? Like, you're not gonna work for 2 months? It's like, I'm not. Like, it's gonna be awesome.
Well, but and realizing too, I'm not gonna get a paycheck for 2 months, but I'm gonna be working.
Exactly.
And that's gonna pay off later.
Exactly.
And you have to remind, dude. And it's funny, like, as much as I'll talk about this stuff, it's a struggle for me. Like I was freaking out 2 days ago because March of 2018 looks light. The calendar in March of 2018 looks light.
I know.
And I know that guys that are salaried in some corporate position, it doesn't feel like that's a possibility, but tomorrow could be different for them too. Like, nothing is guaranteed, but there is something about, like, when you're getting checks from all these different places, and you know that every month you got to send out this amount of money to the bank for the house, and
it's tough. It's really tough, but it's also really it's really fun in a way because you get to you're able to, like, I have some ideas of what I want to do with my time, aside from building a studio, right? That costs money, right? But you kind of allocate for that. And then I want to work on some music of my own, so that's time. But I don't know what's going to happen with that, and then, you meet friends, like I was saying earlier, like, these guys, they own this incredible media company. I mean, they do everything for the biggest sports stuff and everything. And they don't have a music library, so they go to a third party. And I'm it's like, I got to approach them about that. Like, I'm a effing musician, and I know enough people who would be glad to give you stuff, for a very, very small percentage. And I can manage that for you. That's so easy. So it's like,
It's just which of these ideas do I jump on when?
Exactly. And, reading people and knowing timing and understanding that what you want to do now might not be what you need to do right now.
Yeah.
And vice versa. You might need to do something that you don't want to do right now,
Yep.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So it's July 2017, and I'm chilling.
I love it.
And then we get busy in September, so that'll be fun.
That's so cool. What's this next year look like for you guys? You got it laid out? You know where you're going? Or?
So I think September we probably start rehearsals and doing some more like festival type things.
Yeah.
It's, back to school stuff.
Yep.
Whatnot. And then October we're in rehearsals for Australia, so we'll be in Australia for I think 10 or 14 days.
Very cool.
That'll be fun. I've never been, so
it's beautiful.
And
man.
we're hitting the west coast of it. The east coast of it, so like Sydney and that side of it. So that'll be fun. We'll hit the big cities, and then we come back, and I think we go back into rehearsals for a shorter U.S. run.
Cool.
And then December is typically radio events. So like if you don't know how the music industry works, is you have an artist, that person's artist management team, or that artist's management team works out deals with radio stations to get a song played.
Yep.
Part of that deal, 90% of the time, involves them playing a free radio show.
Yep.
Where the artist just kind of shows up and plays a free radio show. And usually there's like 6 or 7 acts. Everybody plays a 30-minute set.
Yep. People
get a great concert. And it's right before the holidays, so it's awesome.
Yeah.
So we've done that the last couple of years, and we did a lot of them last year because the song was so big. Yeah, and then January, I'm sure some sort of rehearsals and a mix of corporate, live, whatever. Meanwhile, me trying to do stuff at home,
Yeah, and who knows what else is going to come up between
Exactly.
But you be ready for it, dude.
Exactly.
Man, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
How can people get a hold of you and follow along, see what you're doing, or if they got work and want to hit you up about it?
If you need anything, I'm a good chef. No, I'm kidding. So, website, emandrums.com.
Yep.
I'm sure this will be on the podcast as a link.
Yep, we'll put a link
I only do Twitter and Instagram, and they're typically the same, or me complaining to Delta or AT&T on Twitter. Both of those are Drum Away Eman.
Rad.
And then my website will have contact info for more personal situations.
Yeah.
If you want my number or something, you can get it through that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put links to those on the podcast. So if you're listening to this and you want to go check out where Eman's at, what he's doing, click over to his website. Yep. Dude, thanks so much, man.
Are you going to show me a trick?
I'll show you a trick. Yeah. I'm going to turn this off and we can
yes.
show tricks and drink more coffee. All right, man.